as you can see, speaking in English because I'm with a very important person of soccer. I am with Bart Willie, the CFO of Seattle Sounders. He is in Brazil for a sports management event, and Brazil, we have very different markets related to soccer. For example, I know you have draft, cap salaries, and I'd like to know, in your presentation, you were talking about a homegrown player. How much time, how long control do you have? For how long can you secure the service of a homegrown player?
Well, as long as they start with our system and play a certain amount of hours, they fall into the homegrown category. And then with the case of DeAndre Yedlin, he could have been with us for as long as he so choose. It so happened that Tottenham came to Seattle and played us in July. They had already seen him before. They saw him in that game. Our technical side started talking, and lo and behold, he'll go to Tottenham later on this year.
I ask you this because here in Brazil, for example, a player with 16 years old, he's eligible to sign a contract. But for example, he might start playing in my club since he's 6 years old. But when he's eligible to sign a contract, he's not. He doesn't have an obligation to sign with the club that built him.
Yeah. That's different than in the States.
Yeah,
and we don't have 6-year-olds playing with our club. I mean, that is commonplace around the world, and we're getting there. We have a U23 team, a U18, a U16, a U14, probably soon to start a U12 team. But and again, once those guys get in our system and play a certain amount of hours, then the Sounders have access to them if and when they choose to turn professional.
Related to your business operation, how important, because here in Brazil we just host the World Cup, and we are going to host the Olympic Games. How volunteers are important to your day-to-day operations?
We have a lot of interns who get paid a little bit of money, but I would consider them a volunteer, and we have many folks who come to the stadium on match day who are not full-time employees of our club, so they're vital. I mean, there's only 60 of us working in the front office staff. And on any given match day at the stadium, there's a cast of hundreds of people that make the production of what we do come together. So without the help of them, we could never put on a match day.
Here in Brazil, during the off-season, I think the whole off-season is important related to sign a player, transactions. I'd like to know how important is for the front office the Super Draft today?
The Super Draft?
Yeah.
You know, it's one of the things where I mentioned earlier that there's been one player that we signed, and we took him in the expansion draft when we first came in the league back in 2009, who had a really massive impact on our club. He was the first draft pick we took in 2009, #1 draft pick. The draft after that has been spotty for us. Guys have come in, made the team, maybe haven't played a whole lot, maybe played some. But the draft is another way in which we build our team. And the league is trying to make it into something that's bigger and bigger and bigger each year. So, you know, we're at the Philadelphia Convention Center in a few weeks in January, and there's rounds of the draft. Each team is there, technical staffs are there. The commissioner, you know, with the first pick of the 2015 Super Draft, with 2 new teams in the league this year, a new team in New York and a new team in Orlando. There's just some more intrigue to see what players those teams are going to pick from college in order to help build out their roster.
And you're going to lose a few players of yours.
We lost one player in the expansion draft, which has already taken place. And you know, our season MLS Cup, our final is on December 7th, and 3 days later, the expansion draft took place middle of the week. So it's a quick turnaround because we have about 7 weeks of an off season that our players come back for training camp.
I don't want to take all of your time. I imagine you are starting to get hungry. So
I'm more jet lagged than hungry.
Just one last question, and I'm gonna split on 2 parts.
Okay.
The first one: how important is Brazil to the major league operations and for Seattle Sounders? And Major League Baseball has a few training camps around Latin America. Do you think it's possible to see a few training camps taking places here in Brazil or Latin America?
To answer your first question, I don't know. That's kind of why I came down for this conference. It was nice that Next Level invited me down. I was happy to come. Our ownership group has expressed maybe a keener interest in taking our brand to different parts of the world. We do a pretty good job in Seattle. We want to do a better job domestically. And then thirdly, we want to be a global brand. Well, we're only 6 years old. So part of the reason why I'm allowed to come to Brazil, the ownership group says, sure, is just to have our brand exposed to a different group of people who support different clubs. And it's as much for us to learn what other clubs do. I mean, despite there's the ownership group scheme being different, and there's there's not an MLS entity running the league here, we're all trying to do the same thing. We're trying to sell tickets and entertain a group of people and put the best possible team on the field. So despite the many differences, at the end of the day, it kind of boils down to the same thing.
And related to the training camps?
Yeah, I mean, we have been to different parts of the world for our training camp before. We've been to Argentina, we've been to Spain. It's possible at some point we come down to Brazil, we go to Australia, we go to Malaysia, we go to Japan. We'd want to find some games there, and with a lot of teams being here, it sure is a possibility for us to play games here. We also do a friendly every year. We played Tottenham last year, we played Chelsea, we played Manchester United. So I see a day, one day when a Brazilian club is going to come to Seattle and play a friendly against the Sounders.
I hope to see it. I'd like to thank you. Thank you very much for your participation in our show.
Thanks.